Welcome to Sport Management Office Hours. I am Brandon Podgorski, Program Director of Sport Leadership at Abilene Christian University. And of course, we have my co-host, or I don't like the word
Sure.
co-host, just a host. We got two hosts. Uh, Dr. Nicholas Zoroya, Sport Management Professor at Madonna University. And we are excited to have Zander Atwood, Professor Atwood, join us today from Trine University up there in Northeast Indiana, in good old Angola, Indiana. We're going to talk with Zander today about the first year experience of a full-time professor, full-time sport management professor. Zander will go through his experience before getting into higher ed, and then we'll also do a recap of the National Collegiate Sports Sales Championship. Zander took Trine through that, and they did very, very well. So excited to hear about his perspective. But first, Zander, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to get to know what the show's about and hopefully offer some different advice to different people as well. So
Well, it's our pleasure having you. I think Nick and I, when we came up with the show idea, it's just to kind of take some of the things that we talk about, in the office or I guess at the water cooler in sport management and put them out in the open and kind of have a forum for all sport management professors to come on here. I know we're going to do some things here in the future to talk about research and presenting and things like that. But I'm really interested to kind of get your experience as a first year full-time assistant professor at Trine in sport management after coming from a pretty impressive background in sales and in sport management as a practitioner. So let's start with that. Tell us about your background and what got you to Trine.
Yeah, I mean, I did not imagine myself being a professor this early in my career, but here I am. God works in mysterious ways. So, um, for me, my entire career has pretty much been in ticket sales and operations. I've worked for a number of different organizations. To kind of do a brief recap here, I've been around quite a bit, but I started off at Western Michigan University doing ticket sales for the Aspire group. So now they're Playfly Aspire, but back then they were just the Aspire group, working as part of their third company or third party company there, doing outbound ticket sales. Wanted to get closer to home in Indiana, so I made the transition over to Purdue University Athletics, working for the athletic department there as a ticket service and sales representative, mainly catering towards our season ticket holders there, really starting to build up better relationships with them, hopefully get them to do bigger and better things with us, and then also working towards helping to build up their donation levels as well through the John Purdue Club, getting them to do a little bit more in that regard. Probably would have been at Purdue a lot longer had COVID not been a thing, but unfortunately, I was one of the many different people that were cut during COVID when they realized they're $50 million in the hole for not having a football season that year. They got to be able to make budget cuts when they can. So ticket sales aren't really necessary at that point. So I understood it. It was part of the process. It hurt, but it definitely was part of the process with that. Was able to find a new job with the Lafayette Aviators, which is a summer collegiate baseball team out of the Prospect League, just across the river in Lafayette, Indiana. Worked there for almost 2 years in a vice president of ticket sales role. Really had a great opportunity there. They built a brand new stadium in downtown Lafayette, brand new ownership, brand new management. So everything was just brand spanking new over there. And we were able to set a lot of different attendance records within the league. Even made it all the way to game 3 of the championship for that year. Unfortunately, extra innings killed us, and we did not have the pitching depth to bring home the hardware at the end of the year. From there, moved back into college athletics and worked for Purdue Fort Wayne University Athletics, so branch campus of Purdue, but they're a member of the Horizon League, so smaller D1 school. Really was doing that as like a one-man show over there, running their ticket office, running ticket sales, doing everything on my own. It didn't end up panning out the way that I thought it would, and I transitioned back into baseball, working for the Rockford Rivets out of Rockford, Illinois. So moved up to Northern Illinois, did that for a little bit, and ultimately when this job opportunity came up here, it ended up being a great opportunity here at Trine, taking over for you, Pod, over here. You laid a really good foundation over here, and it was something that I just couldn't pass up. And here I am, really.
Well, you've had a great background in sport, and it's interesting because our paths have kind of intersected a little bit. I worked with Rock Ventures when they owned the Lafayette Aviators for a couple of years, doing corporate partnership sales with them, and then when I left Trine, which was a really tough decision to make. Your boss, who was my boss at the time, our dean Kat, came to me and she said, "Well, who do you think would be interested?" And we had some names and some alums, and we did some reaching out, and that was at about the time I think you had left Rockford. I'm like, well, I know this guy's got a great sales background. We're trying to build our sales program here in sport management. Let's talk to Zander and see if he'd have some interest. And you've come in and just taken the ball and run with it. So I really want to get into what you've done, because we've done the sales competition at Trine for the past 4 or 5 years, and you've been able to improve on that. So I do want to get to that. But, coming in, you got all this practical experience, and obviously you've gone through college, you've got your undergrad, and you've got your MBA. But now on the other side, as a professor, what's that experience been like? Do you feel that you were ready to be in that professor seat?
Honestly, I feel like I got a really good opportunity from my parents. Both my parents are grade school teachers. They've been working as grade school teachers for 30 plus years each. They're getting pretty darn close to retirement here, but I was lucky enough to be able to grow up having them kind of help not necessarily mold us into teachers, because they wanted us to be what we wanted to be, myself and my siblings. But ultimately, we learned a lot through them on how to be effective teachers and effective leaders. Really, everything that they did helped mold us into where myself and my siblings are at with our lives right now, where we currently stand. So I felt really comfortable coming into this role. Did I think I was going to be a successful teacher? I had no idea. No clue. I didn't know if it was going to be something that maybe I was getting myself in over my head with this, or if I was really going to hit the ground running. But I walked right in, had a good foundation laid out from your previous classes that you had. A lot of the coursework was pretty much set in stone. I just needed to make some tweaks here and there, and I still want to be able to continue to build off of those and tweak them even more. But really, I had a good foundation laid out for me. I think if I didn't have everything kind of just plastered out, that I could just follow along with the instructions that were listed there, I probably would have struggled a little bit more going into it. But I was very, very fortunate that you, Potter, are a very detail-oriented person, which myself, I'm also detail-oriented, and I can very much appreciate that. It really helped make that transition a lot easier here for me. So I think everything that you did to start off with really helped set the foundation. But also as well, my background with my parents being teachers, helping to guide me, really helped give me that leg up in the competition there, I think.
Yeah, so a follow-up question to kind of what Pod was talking about, and you alluded to it. You've already started to maybe adapt and tweak. And being someone that took over for someone else that had been in my position for 4 years, a lot of things are set in stone until they aren't anymore. And so I'm curious, what are the things that stand out to you? What types of changes are you looking to make? And obviously, it's not personal to Pod in any way, but you have your own experience and you have your own things that you want to add in there. So what are some of those things that you're already excited to? Because I know right now you're probably still in survival mode a little bit, but you are jotting down things, like myself. Like I'm finally teaching a class for the first time, and I'm like, oh, we need a new book for sure for next year. So what types of things have popped up for a first year teacher, not only first year professor, but also first time running a program? So you kind of have your hands on everything. So what things have popped up already that you're looking forward to maybe doing for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to start taking a look and seeing what other textbooks are out there, what other pieces of resources we can use to help improve upon the classes. I believe that keeping it as modern as we possibly can, and sticking with the times on it is going to help us out rather than being a little bit grounded in what has already been established through the curriculum. We need to constantly improve upon that. So no knock to Pod or any of the other people that have been here before in this position, but I definitely want to be able to do more to continue to build upon it. I want to do as much as I can to help grow the program, do more with it. But then also from the job perspective as well, my viewpoint with it is that I want to make sure that every single student that comes out of this sport management program gets an opportunity to work within the field that they want to work in. Now, whether that's in sports or if that's in a different industry, doesn't matter to me. I want to be able to help make sure that they get that opportunity to succeed. I feel that the NCSSC competition does a great job with that. They really have an opportunity to go down to Atlanta and connect with a lot of different industries and organizations down there. But also, I want to be able to do more with taking students out to like different networking events, different job career fairs, or anything along those lines within the tri-state area. I really want to do more that gets students better exposure to those organizations and really gets them an opportunity to learn more about what it takes to be a successful individual in those areas.
Yeah, that's a good question, Nick. And I'm kind of thinking because when you came in at Madonna, I'm interested in your experience. Was the program already set? Did you have any new classes, anything new that you had to build?
So year one, no.
Okay.
Year one, I mean, I was hired in the summer and told, here's the classes you're teaching. Because yes, I was a program director, but obviously the dean had a pretty good understanding of who the adjuncts were, and she was great in saying, if you want, we can look at every adjunct, we can look at every course, but maybe just for now, just teach what's there
Hmm.
and get your feet underneath you. And so that's exactly what I did. And right around the time that you're at, Zander, in my first year, I decided, okay, what can we improve on? And I did introduce a new adjunct for a course where I was like, that you're going to be better at this than I am. You know, sports law is it's a tough subject to teach if you're not really well versed in it. So I was able to secure someone for that. I was able to switch out some textbooks, and I even was able to add a workshop, which is like, you know, I don't know how it works at Trine, but basically we can run a workshop 3 times, and if it goes well, then we can add it as a course. And so that's when I decided to add the workshop pod for. I added two actually, one for ticket sales and one for podcasting and broadcasting. And so one of them, they were both great, but you know we didn't have a lot of electives. We had no electives actually. So getting students to take an extra course, that was a hard sell. And so luckily we're able to get at least 9 students in each course, you know, so we can get that full pay. But we learned pretty quickly from those experiences. And then, you know, in year 3, we turned that one workshop into a full-fledged ticket sales and systems course. So yeah, it's constant, right? And now that I've maybe switched around a couple courses on my personal workload, and I've looked at everything, I have decided to switch out some books, and I have changed a few adjuncts here and there. And one thing I will say is we had this idea that you had to have a concentration,
Hmm.
which I'm not opposed to, but there were only 2.
Hmm.
And the issue with that is, you know, either you're in entrepreneurship or you're in digital media. And I'm like, there's a big gap in the sports industry that is not being filled by that. So I converted both those concentrations to certificates. And the way certificates work at Madonna is you can get multiple of them. So, you know, you're still only required to do one, just like the concentration, but now you can stack them, you can add things. So we added a pre-law one for those students that maybe want to get into compliance or be an agent or whatever. We added an esports certificate, and we added and we have a coaching certificate. So now we are giving a little bit of a broader, you know, you have your path, right? You have this path that you have an idea of what you want to do. Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's being an AD, whatever it might be. Now there's a certificate that kind of lets you demonstrate to an employer, like, yes, I am well rounded in sport management, but I also have this one focus where I am maybe a little bit more well versed, and I am really committed to this thing. Now, obviously, there are lots of gaps still. You know, tickets, where's ticket sales? Where's marketing going? All these things, and there are creative ways to get around all of that. we can add those for students. But yeah, that tailoring things for the market, like you said, Xander, that was the biggest thing. Is like I need these students. We need to do more applied sport management and less theoretical sport management. So I know Trine was already up on the applied sport management train, but that's something we had to convert quickly so that we wouldn't get left behind.
Yeah.
Well, in you talked about, I mean, it's really about continuous improvement, and sport changes so quick. So as we're thinking about launching a bachelor's program in sport leadership at ACU, one of the things I'm thinking about that we may not have really talked about a lot in sport management up until now is, technology and innovation, and how is AI being able to have those skills. How our students need to know that at this point, and that's something that we're wrestling a lot with this year, at least at where I'm teaching, because I believe those are skills that, hey, when I got to try, now we're not doing much in sales, we got to do that. Now it's like, oh, now we've got this other thing. So Xander, I'm kind of interested to you. You're really, I really appreciate the compliment in saying that, I left you something good, or at least a good foundation at Trine. I appreciate that. But, there's things kind of going off that last question where you do want a continual improvement. Nick put it best. You're in survival mode that first year. And I remember how that felt, and just trying to come up with test questions or PowerPoints and all that. So you've made that your own. You may have had some resources, but you had to make it your own. When do you find time to kind of reflect and think about, this is what I want to do next year, or this is what I want to do 3 years down the line?
I'm honestly taking notes every single day on stuff that I want to continue to improve upon. So I have like a whole notepad worth of notes that I'm like, okay, this is what I want to change for this course next year. This is what I want to improve upon here. This is where I want to take this area here. So I'm constantly looking and tweaking different areas, and maybe some of them I can change in the moment, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to more core elements or crucial elements that go into the actual curriculum, I want to make sure that I'm taking notes on that. So that way, during the summer, when I have a lot more time on my hands to build out those courses, I can sit down and work on them and be like, okay, here's what I need to change. Let's get to work. Let's get this done. So that'll be a lot of my work over the summer. Granted, I want to be able to relax and do a little bit on that end. But also at the same time, I want to be able to help build these courses so that way they're more effective and more applicable towards what the students actually want and need in order to be able to graduate on time. And that's my biggest thing, is you just got to constantly be working through those changes, because you never know when something new comes into the market. Like a few years ago, having to deal with NIL, that completely changed the entire landscape of how sport law works. It completely changes how student athletes go about their education, with if they're going to actually go to school to get an education and a degree, or if they're just there to be able to participate in sports and just want to be able to get the best bang for their buck out of their scholarship that they have. It changed a lot of different things with that. So same thing with education. I got to be able to take those new topics that are now applicable and change them into, and tweak them into how I want to be able to change the program over here as well. So constantly looking through it and just making sure that everything is as up to date as I possibly can make it, but then taking notes at the same time on what I can do to help change.
Yeah. And I think all three of us are in places where there's not, we don't have a lot of colleagues in sport management. We're kind of one-man bands in our department. So I'm kind of interested in hearing this from both of you. So Xander, I'll open it up to you first, but Nick, I'm interested in hearing from you, because we may have similar but also kind of different techniques in this. When you're kind of the only sport management person in a department, Xander, how do you get some of that mentorship? Because again, all of us came into higher ed from being actual practitioners in the field. Like, I didn't know how to put together a test. I didn't really know how to put together a lecture. I would try to, I thought I would have the perfect class put together. And then I get done with my lecture. I'm like, crap, we still have 20 minutes left. Like, what do I do at this point? But I didn't have anybody. I had people I could go to and ask questions, but they weren't sport management people. And as I'm sure you're probably figuring out, sport management is a different beast than anything else on a college campus. And I'll die on that hill. So, how have you been able to kind of get some of that mentorship, whether it's there at Trine or other methods, to kind of figure out, all right, well, here's what it looks like in my teaching?
I think for myself, I'm mostly taking a look at how other professors teach, and I'm trying to take bits and pieces of what they're doing and apply it to what I want to do in the classroom. In terms of the curriculum itself, like I said, a lot of it was very much set in stone, and I'm constantly working on changing different pieces of it and making sure that they work well. Um, but a lot of that is stuff that I already know. And a lot of that is stuff that I can present to the class with full confidence that I know exactly what I'm talking about with it because I have experience in those areas. Um, the key for me is making sure that I'm doing it in a way that is actually going to help benefit the students. So it's a lot of the teaching part of it. And for me, not having been in an education background other than just my parents influencing us, a lot of that terminology is like in one ear, out the other. I have no idea what to call it. I just know what it is. So I'm learning from different professors on what certain pieces are within the class. Like, how do I make this chapter more applicable to a student through an activity that happens in class or through a learning exercise? How do I make the study guides more applicable to allow the student to take key concepts and apply that to their own knowledge and use their own notes to make sure that they understand what they're talking about with that? How do I create different things within the classroom that make it more fun for everyone to be able to learn and grow at a reasonable pace instead of just cramming it all into one given lecture? That is what I'm really trying to get more of a grasp on. And I think we talk about survival mode here. I haven't really felt that too much this semester. I felt like I've kind of like slid right in and really had a good run with it so far. Granted, I'm learning on the fly, but I am learning at a reasonable pace with it. Now I just need to be able to take a lot of the teaching aspects of it and make it more applicable to the actual lessons themselves. And I feel in that area specifically, that's where I'm really starting to not necessarily struggle, but I'm slowly learning in that area. I'm starting to slowly apply it a lot more. So kind of different perspective on that, but that's where I'm at with where I'm at with teaching right now. So
All right, that works. Nick, what about you? I know for me, I really had to leverage LinkedIn and, get to kind of get to know people. And even just in our conversations over, just the past few months, when we've talked about things like ChatGPT or certain research or writing textbooks, I'm like, man, why didn't I get to know Nick a little bit sooner and just kind of be able to pick his brain? So what are some of the things you've done to kind of, ramp up to speed to where you're at now?
Um, well, I was lucky in one sense. We come from coaching, Pod, so the teaching part wasn't the difficult part. It was all the other stuff, right? And I'll tell you, even after 5, 6, 7 years, you'll still have a lesson where it was perfectly planned and it's still going to be 20 minutes short. But I feel like now we see that coming ahead of time. We're 20 minutes into the lesson, we already can tell this is going to be done early, and we've got strategies to pivot or to create conversations, or sometimes when I'm designing that lesson plan, I'll bake in a couple extra emergency questions, topics, even a quick little 5-minute video where it's like, just in case everything goes wrong, let's pivot to this. So that never changes. You just get better at dealing with it. But for me, I was also, a high school teacher. I then adjuncted while I was coaching. So I wasn't exactly brand new to it. Now, designing a syllabus from scratch or curriculum development, like creating a brand new course, which we've done, we've done one already, and we're in the process of adding another one right now for, we're going to run a second freshman year course that's specifically catered to networking and figuring out what you want to do in the sports world, just careers in sports. And we're creating a course for that right now and designing a 16-week course from scratch with learning objectives and all those things. That's where I lean on the instructional design team. which I never knew what an IDD team was when I started this job. And to be honest with you, yeah, I did lean on a few more guest speakers in the first year or two than I do now. Like right now, it's really got to be a perfect situation where the schedule and everything makes it worth the hassle, because so many times you have to cater to the speaker schedule. And so now for me, it's like, unless I'm getting a lot out of that guest speaker, I'll just do it myself. But that first couple of years, I really did lean on these people to kind of fill the gaps and kind of keep the semester moving along, and even giving my students a break from me speaking. Now I feel like we're better than that. And honestly, a lot of it came down to about a year ago. And so this is at the end of my third year. I decided, I always kept one door open to industry, because, and I'd be lying if the local high school didn't call me that I coach at and said, "Hey, do you want to be the athletic director?" And to sit there and make six figures in the township that I live in, at a school with 2,000 kids that my daughters will go to one day, like, it'd be hard to not consider that.
Sure.
But last March, I really sat down and I said, instead of just looking ahead too far, why don't you just do this really well? And so that led me to say, all right, well, then you're going to have to do research, which, Pod, I know you can relate to this. At some point, if this is what you're going to do, then you do have to stop being just a practitioner, and then you have to put on the academic hat and check some of those boxes. So I went out and I found a mentor on LinkedIn. I just was like, you know what, this guy, Umar Hussein, is my mentor when it comes to all things research. And all it was is I was on LinkedIn doing my thing, and I noticed that Umar was really pushing out a lot of material. And even if he wasn't publishing an article, he was involved in a book chapter or a committee, or he was guest speaking. And I said, all right, well, let's just do what I tell my students to do. Don't ask for anything other than a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked for a conversation, and he was so busy I had to wait 3 months to have the conversation. But once I did, that May, that conversation turned from me asking just for advice, saying, "Hey, I'm open. Anything you ever need, I'll do it. I just want to get my feet wet. I just need to get started." He immediately said, "You're going to join us on this study on esports and mental health. You're going to be a co-author, and it's grant funded, so you can put that on your resume as well. I have a book chapter. I would love for you to co-author it with me." And 2 weeks later, he was also so busy that he couldn't help other authors out. So he started kicking them to me. And so now I'm working with people in the Middle East writing these papers. And I'm just like, all of a sudden, it just starts spiraling out of control, where it's like, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this. But I had no idea how this game was played. Because it really is, you have to figure out how the game's played. And I needed a good coach. And I found one that really put me in a good position there. So, at a small school, like all of our schools are smaller, there's no funding for research. More, maybe a little bit. I don't want to say none, but there's very little support there from the institution. So you got to do it on your own. And so you either have to do lean, cheap research where you're going to fund it yourself, or it doesn't require any funding, or you have to get creative and work with people at other institutions. And that's one of the reasons we started the pod, was so that we could network with people and keep building our network and keep working with people. I mean, our podcast alone with Josh, Josh Greer and I, we co-authored a chapter, and now the three of us with Pod are authoring our own textbook on ticket sales, because it seems to be a gap that we need to fill. And so none of that would have happened without the mentorship part. Like, I didn't have any confidence at all. I didn't know where to look. And now if I were, we're hoping for a second full-time faculty member. If it's a younger or a less experienced faculty member, I know exactly what direction to point them in every step of the way, and I can coach them now. And so that's hopefully going to be beneficial to them as well, that they don't have to like scour the internet until 2 a.m. every night looking for where this information lives. It's not a secret. It's just, you don't know where to look. Yep. And it's not very obvious where to look for this information. So I would say the mentorship part is really what, I had the teaching part that's gotten better as I understand where I'm at and who my students are and all of these things. But really the mentorship part of this job is so important, because they might match you, Zander. They might have put you with someone. They put me with someone this year. I mentored a brand new faculty member, but that wasn't done to me. Like, my faculty member and we never once met. They never reached out, and I didn't even know who they were. So I didn't know who to ask these questions to. So, luckily, asking people in your hallway is the best place to start at your staff meetings. But no one will understand the sport management part other than other people in the industry. And so, like Pod said, when we're at Cosma, just walking to and from the venue, we're able to come up with new ideas for different projects, different curriculum, because these are things that our significant others, they're supportive, but they don't understand. And I can't expect them to. Like, isn't this a great idea? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, Nick, but I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, yeah, I got to talk to Pod if I want real feedback, I guess. So
I think that's the benefit of LinkedIn as well. Like, I've been a huge proponent of LinkedIn for many, many years throughout my career. Not just from the connection perspective of building up your network and doing all that, but also at the same time, you're gaining good relationships with people. It's not just you connect with someone and because they're within the same field and you never get in touch with them ever again. It's reach out to them, ask them a question, find out more about their life, their career, see how they can help you in your area. And I found that to be something that's been incredibly beneficial for me here, is connecting with a lot of other sport management professors out there. And I really got a great chance to meet quite a few of them when I was down at in Atlanta for NCSSC. But I've connected with quite a few more over the last year here at Trine that I never had any kind of connection with before. And they've become really good allies and really good friends within this industry.
So Nick gave us a perfect segue to what I want to ask you next, Zander, and then we'll do the sales competition recap. But I want you to kind of think about, and this may be an unfair question for your first year as a professor, but kind of think about where you want to be maybe 5 and even 10 years down the line. Having that mentor and using all the resources you can use to get to that point, to kind of figure out where it is I want to go, are really important. And I like what Nick was talking about. You always kind of have an eye to what's actually happening, like in practice. I had to make that decision. And I feel I made it pretty early into higher ed. I really enjoyed being an athletic director in coaching and working in sales and all that. I really enjoyed it. But my life changed. I was single when I did all that stuff. So working 60 to 80 hours a week and traveling, great. This is amazing. I know I can't do that now. And so I still get the same benefits in higher ed of working in sport, but without all the travel and everything else. Now, I really miss game days, and I miss being part of a team, and I miss having that camaraderie and helping in winning. Maybe not necessarily, when I was in sales on the court, but we play a role in the organization, and a really important role. I get that now doing a little bit of part-time work with the NFL and NBA, so that's kind of cool. But I don't know if there's a job that could take me out of higher ed to work in sport now, just because of the time demands. Now, to Zander's point, if you're throwing 6 figures in at me, my wife might become a little bit more sanguine to that idea. But if I want to advance in higher ed, I've got to finish this doctorate, which I hopefully will do here in the next few months, and then got to do a little bit of research and then go on from there and get a little bit better position. Where have you landed right now? Or have you given that much thought of like, what's my career going to look like 3, 5, 10 years from now? And what do I have to do to make that a reality?
Yeah, and it's honestly a very good question, because it's something that we all should be concerned about. How is life going to be within the next few years? Where is life going to take me? Since COVID, my wife and I's life has just been all over the place. We thought we had stability within Lafayette, didn't end up working out that way. And so then we jumped to Fort Wayne, then we jumped to Rockford. Now we're back over here in Northeast Indiana again. We've been all over the place over the last few years. To be completely honest, and I'm putting this as bluntly as I possibly can, we are tired of moving. We want stability. We want to be grounded. We want to find a place to really call home and set up a home for us here, like to start building a family and to start moving forward with our lives. So for me, coming into this job, I needed security. I needed something that was going to provide me with longevity, and not just for the next couple of years before I get tired of this and move on to the next. Because I feel like that's a lot of what my generation and the generation after me is. We're very much job hoppers in that regard. I'm very centric in my core values. Like for me, I just want a place to call home. And that's really what I want out of my career, is to find something that fits for me long term. My motto is do what you love and love what you do. For me, I love working in sports. That's all I've ever done in my life. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I would love to go back into it. And I dream of the day when I could become like a general manager for a baseball team. I would love it. And I would do it in a heartbeat if the money was right and the opportunity was right. But I got a piece of advice coming into this gig here at Trine from a colleague of mine at Northern Illinois University, Dave Soroka, great individual, really knowledgeable. He basically told me coming into this job, you would have to do something incredibly stupid in order to get yourself canned or fired from this job. This is your job for as long as you want it. And as long as you're putting in a good work effort, a good work ethic with it, and really doing more to be able to help build up the program, this job is yours for as long as you want it. And I truly feel that way maybe coming into the job, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But now that I've been here for a semester and now almost half a semester here for the spring semester, I really do feel like this is a place that I can be long term. And that's really what I want to be able to do, is continue to build up that piece of it and really make a name for myself in education. Maybe someday down the road, maybe 5, 10 years from now, maybe that opportunity opens up where I can get back into sports. And I'll evaluate that as we go along with it. My wife is already very aware that sports is very much that industry where we got to go where the job requires us to be. And she's okay with that. Do I want to continue to uproot us and go from place to place? No, I want to make sure that we're stable for a while, keep us there for quite a bit of time, and then look at other opportunities when they come around. But for now, we really want to be here for as long as we possibly can, and that's where our hearts and minds are set at this point. So I really do love this job. I really feel like this is a great chance for me to really make a name for myself on the education side, and hopefully start to build up the next generation of talent here at Trine. So
Very good. Have you given any thought to, your assistant professor, and then eventually you might want to get promoted, what you might need to do to get to that associate level?
I know higher ed is going to be something that I need to consider looking at, and I thought I was going to be done with schooling. But that may end up being something I go back and get a law degree, or start working on a different piece of education that'll help build up my credentials. Um, I'm open to it. I'm really open to opportunities where maybe there's research out there that I can get myself involved in, and I'm more than willing and able to participate in those. But I think for now, it's just kind of getting my feet wet, making sure that I understand what I'm doing with it. And then once I'm more comfortable, then I can start adding on the extra pieces and start moving forward from there. But maybe somewhere down the line, I do end up getting that law degree that I had dreamt of when I was in undergrad, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Very good.
Yeah, well, one piece of advice I'll throw at you is, while you're keeping that one eye kind of on the sports world, because you're kind of in a sports adjacent position here, find simple things to do, side hustles, hobbies. Pod does his thing with the stats. I'm on my way to Madonna for a couple hours of office hours, and then off to Ann Arbor to broadcast a lacrosse game. Coach, whatever it might be, find a way to just keep doing that a little bit, but as a hobby, because that way you get your fill. You don't miss it as much. My dad told me once, he's like, is coaching going to be your career or your hobby? And I've enjoyed it a lot more now that it's my hobby, because now I don't put the pressure of it has to pay my bills, it has to do all these things. Now I can just do it because I love it. And
Yes.
so I would recommend, just finding something, even if it's small, that just lets you just be involved without being all the way involved.
Yeah, and I for my wife and I especially, we're close to getting a family started. We're very hopeful. There's some medical stuff that we're working on here as well, but um, my gut feeling is that I will start getting a little bit more involved in that when I have a kid that's ready to start getting into those types of areas. Maybe I involve myself in coaching a little bit more. Um, but for now, I'm really enjoying the aspect of being a fan of sports rather than being involved in the actual sport. So, my wife and I just picked up a mini plan here with the Fort Wayne Tin Caps just down the road here in Fort Wayne. So we're really excited to be able to go to the ballpark and actually just enjoy it as fans rather than me working day after day, six games home stands every other week, anything along those lines. Like it's a grind, and I love the grind. Don't get me wrong. I crave the grind. I want to be involved in it, but it's nice to be able to sit back, have a hot dog, drink a beer, and just enjoy the game itself. I get to just take in that surrounding from a fan aspect, and I love that piece of it. So I think for now we're really just enjoying the fandom. Hopefully somewhere in the future I enjoy the coaching side a little bit more too. So we'll see what happens.
And I love that advice, Nick, because you're right on. You know, being able to work game days and do stats, it scratches that itch. And at the same time, you know, I'll get there for 6 p.m. game, and I'll get there about an hour early, and we'll say NBA. And I'll see people have been there since like 7 or 8 in the morning. They still got to work the game, and then they got to tear down. I'm like, nope, no, thank you. Like anytime I think about like I want to jump back into that full time, I think about that, and I'm like, nah. But I still get the ability to get out of the house and be part of that team. And Zander, kind of, I did something similar to what you're doing. We didn't do necessarily a season package, but I just took the first couple of years as a professor, and kind of my side hustle was just networking and getting to know people. And then from there, I started doing some blogging, and I started doing some podcasting, and that's how I scratched that itch, and it evolves over time. So you'll kind of figure out where that lands for you. But I did want to. I know we're getting a little bit late here, but I did want to get a recap of the National Collegiate Sports Sales Championship, so Zander can continue the legacy there at Trine, and I know it's something that Nick is wanting to do at Madonna as soon as they can get that rolling. But tell us all about it. Kind of give us a recap. How did it go for your students? Well, let's start with that. First, let's talk about student success, and then we'll talk about kind of your overall opinion of the competition. How'd Trine do this year, and in what divisions were you guys in?
Yeah. So am I okay to say student names on here? I'm assuming I am.
Yeah, that's fine, man.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, we took 4 students down to Atlanta. These were students that were involved in our sport management capstone class. So we have a fall semester class, which is more ticket sales focused. We partner with the Detroit Pistons, and we do a ticket sales program through them. So only the best from that class, plus any other students that are maybe interested in sports but aren't sport management majors, will get the opportunity to really participate in Atlanta. They do the fall competition, which is more of a virtual piece. We see how they go. We see how they do with that. And then from there, the best of the best end up going down to Atlanta. We were lucky enough to have 2 students each place within the top 100 for both ticket sales and corporate partnerships. And all 4 of those students ended up making their way down to Atlanta. So Grace Dubeck was one of our top competitors. She finished 8th overall in corporate partnerships in the competition in Atlanta. Got a nice Hawks jersey with the NCSSC logo on the back and everything. She was really excited for that. Josh Meyer ended up making it within the top 16 overall for ticket sales. So he did really, really well. And Max Hugavine and Chase Herrick both came down as well. Max was not able to participate. He didn't end up making it as an alternate. Chase bowed out on the first round. He lost by a matter of 10 points in the first round. So I feel like he would have done a lot better had he gotten the opportunity to kind of practice a little bit more, but he came in late as like an alternate. But But all four of them really enjoyed that opportunity to really network with individuals, not just other students, but other professors, other organizations that were down there. They really connected a lot with a lot of different people. And they really got an opportunity to interview with quite a few different companies down there as well. I was fortunate enough that I knew quite a few people that were down there from different organizations. So my old boss from when I was at Western Michigan, he works for the Washington Wizards now as a director of ticket sales there. So it was nice being able to chat with him and hang out with him for quite a bit of time. But then also to connect with others from like the Cubs. When my wife and I used to be season ticket holders for the Cubs, it just got a little bit too expensive for us, and we bowed out this last year. But being able to connect with the season ticket reps over there, the Bulls were there as well, so I got to connect with a few of them, and the Blackhawks as well. But quite a few other organizations. There were the Buffalo Bills, the Tennessee Titans were there, the Atlanta Hawks, of course. So I got to connect with quite a few of them that were down there. It was really good to be able to connect with them, but also for our students, they really got an opportunity to interview with them and connect and build up their resume and repertoire in terms of interviewing and all that. And they all landed second interviews out of everything that they did at the competition. Grace was lucky enough, she just accepted a role with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the foundation, which is their ticket sales program they have there. Josh Meyer just got back from Philadelphia to interview with the Philadelphia Flyers, so he was really excited about that. He told me he had a really great experience there. Max Hugavine has had a couple interviews here with the Cubs and with the Chicago Fire football club. And then Chase was supposed to head out to Philadelphia as well. He got caught with the flu here, as much of everyone else on campus here recently. But all of them have had a really, really good opportunity to connect with a lot of different people in this industry. And their prospects for getting good jobs out of this is really, really high. And I feel like that's what the most important thing out of this is that they could do really well in the competition, but it's arbitrary, at least. It's all based on a matter of opinion to see who did well, who didn't, how do we prepare them, how do we make it better, that kind of stuff. That's all arbitrary. The main purpose of it is really to connect them with individuals in the sport industry and get them that opportunity to get a job coming out of college, because that's what they want, is the seniors down there to really see, okay, you're still in school, but you're finishing up. How would you like a job here with this organization right off the bat? And that for most students is like, I got a job coming out for graduation. Like, I don't have to worry about a thing. I don't have to go job hopping. I don't have to do more interviews. I've got something in stone right now. And I think that's what's most beneficial out of it. Granted, my competitive side, now having seen it and done that competition, I'm craving for the opportunity for next semester to see which students are really going to succeed. And I've got a whole list. I've been interviewing, well, I say interviewing, but I've had meetings with these students to be like, hey, you should do this fall semester here because I really think you'll do a good job. But I do think that now that I have a better understanding of it, I can better prepare them for what they're getting themselves into, and how we can potentially maybe get some hardware out of it for next semester or for next competition as well. So I'm excited for it, but I'm more excited for the opportunities that our students get out of it.
Man, I love hearing that. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, we come home from Atlanta, and I was a little disappointed, not so much in the performance of my students, but in the fact that, out of a class of, I don't know, maybe about 15 sport management major who were seniors that year, only two actually did the competition, and we had to draw two from, I think, maybe other majors, maybe one from another major. So I remember going into a class kind of full of undergrads. I think it was principals in sport and rec management. I was just kind of fired up, and I get this fire and brimstone speech about how, we need to get more people involved. You need to take this serious and blah, blah, blah. I think Grace and Chase were both in that class. So I don't know if it landed with them, but I was glad to see them perform well. But there were three things that came to my mind when you said that, and we don't get anything from the NCCSC or Lane. I just believe it to be a really powerful professional development and a really powerful tool for our students. But one, it's not just a competition, but they also get the chance to interview and get jobs. And I would say all three of us, that's why we're here, is to help students get a career in their dream industry. Two, it's an amazing marketing component for your school if it's something that you're wrestling with doing. Trying, you go and you place ahead of certain teams like, your Arizona States or your Baylors or your Florida States. That, to me, that jumps off the page. Sometimes that's a hard argument to make with certain marketing departments, not necessarily trying, but that's a great marketing piece for your program. And then, three, for the professor, you go down there in 1 or 2 days, you can have all your guest speakers lined up for a year, just like that. And you're making really great industry connections, which now you can start to expose your students to. So again, when you have students kind of looking at, well, do I want to go to Spring Arbor? Or do I want to go to Madonna? Well, I can go to Madonna and do this sales competition, and I've got access to guest speakers. Same thing. Do I want to go to Trine, or do I want to go to Defiance? Same thing. So, I'll ask just kind of as a follow up to that question with the recap. What was your overall feeling with the sales competition? Did you like it? Are there areas for improvement? What did you think?
I'm honestly very jealous of the fact that these students get this opportunity compared to when I was in college and I never had this opportunity, because I know my introverted self back then would have really struggled with it, but it would have been a huge eye opener for me to get that opportunity. And I'm really jealous of the fact that I never got to do it myself when I was in undergrad. I think coming into it, I was incredibly nervous. I had no idea what to expect. I was just kind of going off of what my experience was and just applying that towards what I felt could have potentially happened within the competition. Having now seen the competition and done it already from a coaching perspective, I now have a much better understanding of what to prepare the students for.
Yep.
And I feel like that will help me to be able to help build a team that will be a good competitor down there. Not to say that we didn't do well this year, because for a first year coach, I think I did a heck of a job. I'm not saying that I did great, but I feel like I did okay. But now next year I can potentially be like, okay, I'm going to do better than what our students did this last year. I know how to prepare them to get them higher than what our students did this year. I was also very, very nervous of the fact that going down to Atlanta the week, literally 2 days after the national championship game at Mercedes-Benz Dome, I was nervous as all heck going down there, because I'm like, there's going to be so many people. This place is going to be packed. Everyone's going to want to be here. It's just going to fry my circuits really, really badly. But going down there and actually being a part of it, I know now I have nothing to worry about. This was an absolute amazing time. Everyone connected well. Everyone had a great opportunity there to really succeed. So I feel a lot more comfortable with it. And I even told Lane when I was down there, if there's anything I can do on my end to help with prepping for this event, to help with changing some stuff or being involved a little bit more, please don't hesitate to let me know, because I'm more than happy to be a part of that on my end.
All right. Well, that is Zander Atwood, Assistant Professor of Sport Management at Trine University. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experience as first-year professor and recap of the NCSSC. One day I'll get that.
Thank you for having me. I know I like to jabber a lot, but it was great talking shop here with you guys. Looking forward to building off those connections even further in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks, Zander.
Thank you.